Everybody, as promised at the top of the show, and it's Friday. You know what we do on Friday. I'm joined by Matt Lowe from PhilLoveMedia.com. If you're watching it on YouTube, you see it on the screen where he writes. But Matt, it's another Friday. I can't believe we're going into week 8 of the college football season.
Yeah, it's going by quick, like it always does. Last week there were some good games. Really starting to see who's pretty good and who's not. Once again, though, Phillip, here it comes into play with coaches making decisions about not kicking field goals and going for it on fourth down. I'm looking at you, Dan Lanning. I mean, I for the life of me, you're in a top 10 game, potentially with a ball game that could put you in the college football playoff. You know, fourth and inches is one thing. 4th and 2, 3, that's different. But if that guy would have kicked the 2 field goals, the one for the half, I think the one in the third quarter, they would have been up by 10 points. And then Washington would have scored, and they still would have been up by 3 points. So they lose by 3 points. I mean, I just, for the life of me, do not understand it, Phillip. And it's, once again, it goes back to common sense. I mean, you know, I just don't understand. And that was one thing that really caught my eye last week. And of course, Brock Bowers getting hurt. That's a big blow for Georgia. I thought Bowers should be a shoe-in to be a Heisman candidate for what he means to his team. And, you know, big win by Tennessee last week. So a lot more good games coming up this week too.
Yeah, there's some big ones. And the Brock Bowers thing, I'm interesting how they handle that because Oscar Delp will now slide into the number one tight end role. But Carson Beck's going to find some new safety valves, some new guys to lean on in the offense. Because, you know, just kind of dating back, when you look back at the Auburn game, whenever things got tough second half, who they go to? Brock Bowers. That was the go-to guy. So I'm kind of going to be curious how the Georgia offense handles Brock Bowers not being there. They're super talented, great players all over the field, but Brock Bowers is different. And you could tell their offense was really centered around what he could do.
Yeah, and Delp's a good player. I mean, he's a really good player. So, I mean, but there's only one Brock Bowers. He's one of the better players that I've ever seen as far as what he does and just how the plays that he makes in crunch time. That's going to be a big loss for Georgia. We'll see how they navigate that moving forward. I mean, I think they'll lean on the running game a little bit more, try to maybe use some guys out of the backfield a little bit more. And Carson Beck's playing good football, though. He's a good quarterback.
Yeah, he's been impressive, really impressive. Like I said, against Auburn, it's a clutch performance on the road. He had to make some plays, and he did so. So week 8, we have some interesting games. We're actually going to start things off with a non-SEC game, a non-Southeast game, which is usually where we live at here on the show. Penn State and Ohio State, number 3, number 6, big matchup. It'll be on Fox, 11 a.m. Starting the day off early with a really big game like this. But you know, I look at it. Penn State's got good numbers, but they haven't really played anybody this season yet. They have not been challenged. We know Ohio State played Notre Dame. Best pass defense nationally is Penn State. They're number 2 in college football sacks. Great defense. Drew Allers played well. But as I said, Ohio State's tested. What comes to mind to you for this matchup?
Well, I think this is going to be an old-fashioned snobber knocker, man. I think this is going to be a defensive game. They both play really good defense. I kind of agree with you how Penn State's not played anybody, but that's not the players' fault. They got Ohio State's pretty banged up at the skill spots. I mean, their top 3 runners didn't play last week, and so they had to turn to Dallin Hayden, who ran for 76 yards. Travion Henderson has missed the last 2 games for them, and he's an outstanding running back. And Ibuke, the other receiver, he's questionable, which if he's unable to go, I would think Penn State would probably double Harrison because he's so dynamic. You know, I don't know if either one of these quarterbacks have really played in a game of this magnitude. So that'll be interesting to see. But both of them have been really productive at throwing the ball. I mean, limited turnovers. So I think the injury report's huge for Ohio State, and I'll tell you, there's one guy on their defense to watch is number 35, the linebacker Tommy Eichenberg. That dude's a heat-seeking missile.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good player. This is a tough one to call, Phillip. I don't think Penn State's won in Ohio State since 2011, but I like Penn State to go in there and pull the upset. I do. I just think with the injuries that Ohio State has on offense right now, I think Penn State's a little healthier, and I'm going to go with them. If anything, it might be a field goal game.
So we're going to kick things off going opposite here on the show this week. I'm going to go Ohio State. And the reason my thing is I think these are evenly matched. I think it's going to be a rock fight. It's going to be a low-scoring game. I don't think we're going to see a lot of points being scored. But I'm going to give Ohio State the edge because, one, they're at home. And number two, the Notre Dame game. They've been tested. In a tough game at the end, we've seen Kyle McCord step up. I don't know how Drew Aller is going to respond in that situation. So I'm going to – a lot of times when I pick games, I go with what I know and what I've seen. I know I've seen Ohio State deliver when they had to in this moment. I don't know that about Penn State. And like you said, Penn State has had teams we thought were going to be really good, but then they meet up with Ohio State and Michigan, and then it not go their way. So James Franklin showed me something. Showed me a little something. But I'm going to go with Ohio State to win that one.
Yeah, and I mean, the running combination of Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton for Penn State is pretty dynamic. Those are pretty good running backs. And heck, I think I had pretty good a week last week picking for the first time in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I got to go back and do a better job keeping up with what we're doing every week. I keep saying every week I'm going to get better at that. We will do it next week, I promise. So let's jump into the SEC. Mississippi State 3-3, 0-3. They did not play last week. They will be at Arkansas 2-5, 0-4 in SEC play. They have lost 5 straight games. They've been in 4 of those 5 games. The A&M game was out of reach for them at the end. I mean, they almost came back on Alabama. We know the story. They can't run the ball. KJ is under pressure all the time, but they were tough and they tried to come back. 11 a.m. kickoff ESPN. Arkansas is a 6-point favorite. The over-under is 48.5. And I think going this game, it's hard to pick it. We don't know the status of Will Rogers. He got hurt the last time we watched him play, and he hurt his shoulder. If he doesn't play, I don't think Mississippi State's got a shot at this because their offense is centered around Will Rogers. They run best when he's just throwing the ball all over the place. If Mike Wright's playing a quarterback, that changes the offense for Mississippi State. Just because I don't know that, I'm just going with Arkansas to win this one.
Yeah, and once again, I mean, Arkansas, I mean, they've been close, and I mean, they played LSU tight, should have beat BYU. I mean, played Ole Miss tight. So, I mean, I like Arkansas here, and I think they'll win pretty comfortably. I don't think Mississippi State's that good.
I don't either. I think, before the season, a lot of the media got flack for picking them last. A lot of people didn't actually pick the Auburn 6. I think we're seeing why now. Look, they'll play in a few weeks, and we'll find out who's the worst team in the SEC West is with Auburn and Mississippi State. But it's just, I think changing the offense was a mistake. Going away from air raid was a mistake, in my opinion.
I totally agree with that. And look, man, Zach Arnett's never been a head coach. I mean, so it's different when you're in that pilot seat, man. I mean, when you're the top dog and you got to make the decisions. And I mean, I think Will Rogers is an NFL player. I do. And if he can't play in this game, I think they'll be behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, we've got another game down the road we're going to talk about that a quarterback may or may not play. We got a little bit better answer about it, but we'll get to that in a second. That's an ACC matchup, but we'll get to that game in a few moments. The big game, Tennessee at Alabama. This is 2:30 on CBS. Alabama's a 9.5-point favorite. The over-under is 49. Tennessee's 5-1, 2-1 in SEC play. Alabama 6-1, 4-0 in SEC play. You watch Tennessee play now. They're not what they were last year. They're not as explosive, but they can run the ball. They're the best rushing team in the SEC. And defensively, they'll get after you. Last week against Texas A&M, this stat comes from PFF. They pressured Max Johnson 25 out of the 39 times he dropped back. Offensive line gave up 11 quarterback hits. What's Alabama's weakness offensively? Pass protection. This might be another. We talked about Penn State, Ohio State being a rock fight. Alabama, Tennessee might be a rock fight.
I totally agree with you. And I tell you what, Jalen Wright's a really good running back for Tennessee. I mean, that guy, he sets up the holes, and that there's an art to that. I mean, Le'Veon Bell was really good with the Steelers at setting up his blocks. I mean, and being patient. He's that kind of a runner. I'm not saying he's Le'Veon Bell, but he's that kind of runner as way he sets up, when he runs the ball and sets up his block. So, I totally agree with you, man. I watched that game from pretty much start to finish, and they were on Max Johnson like white on rice, man. They were all over that guy, and I was really impressed with their pass rush. And maybe Texas A&M's offensive line isn't that great, but I think they're a pretty good offensive line. So Joe Milton, big games, he's interception prone. And there's one thing watching that game last week. Joe Milton, if he'd have kept the ball on the zone read a couple of times, he'd have ran for about 20 or 30 yards. So I would look for them to try to do that a little bit more against Alabama. But you look at Milton's stats last week, 11 of 22 for 100 yards. I mean, I granted Texas A&M defense pretty good, but that ain't gonna cut it against really good teams, I don't think. But as far as Bama goes, they're playing really good defense. I thought they kind of let Arkansas back in the game last week. Didn't really put them away. Kobe Prentice was a little bit more involved in the passing game. Jalen Milroe looks really good now, passing the ball. But like you said, if he's under the gun the whole game, will that affect him? And that's the one thing. That's the $1 million question here in this game, in my opinion. I like Jam Miller at running back there. I said it last week. I think they need to try some new guys to see if they can get a home run hitter. And he averaged 10 yards a carry. So this is a tough one to call. I think D. Miller, the punt returner for Tennessee, he flipped that game on that punt return last week.
He did.
And that could come into play this week. I'm a big believer in special teams and big games. I mean, I think Alabama's kick country. I think Alabama wins by a field goal or 3 to 4 points. I mean, I think this is going to be a tight game. But I will say this: if Joe Milton throws 2 or 3 interceptions, it could get ugly for Tennessee.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm going Alabama too. And it's interesting too. And earlier in the week, I talked to Tony Sakalas, who covers Alabama. He's managing editor for Tide Illustrated. And I brought a point. Remember the Florida game. What did Florida do against Tennessee? They ran the ball on them. Alabama run the ball. You've got the backs, do it. Because I do believe in the second half against Arkansas, after they got up 24-6, I feel like Alabama got away from the run a little bit. There was a stretch in the game. Jalen Milroe was 1 of 9 versus Arkansas. And what happens when the ball hits the ground on a passing completion? The clock stops, gives the other team chances to get back. I think Alabama needs to focus on a run with Rodell Williams, Chase McClellan. You talk about Jam Miller. Get Justice Haynes in there. Put Milroe in the run game. Run the ball against Tennessee. I think that's a great avenue for success on Saturday.
Yeah, and sure. And when you're running the ball, the guys aren't running after your quarterback, Yeah. And I mean, because like I said, Tennessee's defense really impressed me last week.
Yeah, and and the thing is too, when you run the ball, that's going to open up play action because that's going to bring the safety up. And what does Milroe do the best? Throw in the deep ball, man. His intermediate game still needs some work at times, but man, his deep ball is a thing of beauty.
Yeah, he really does throw a good deep ball. I mean, and that's if you can do that. I mean, if you can do that and be successful at it, it makes your offense that much more dangerous. And I do think Prentice needs to be more involved in the offense because Jermaine Burton's a good player, but Prentice he's a weapon. He's fast.
Yeah, he is. Next game, another game at 2:30. We've got South Carolina 2-4, 1-3. We'll be playing number 20 Missouri, who's 6-1, 2-1 in the SEC. 2:30, like I said, SEC Network. Missouri's a 7-point favorite. The over/under is 60 in this one. I think a lot of people are expecting some points in this one, and that's basically what South Carolina's going to do. South Carolina's got the worst defense in the conference. I mean, it's about Spencer Rattler throwing the ball all over the place. with Xavier Leggett, who's one of the best receivers in the SEC, third with 716 yards receiving. South Carolina's got to get in a shootout again. I mean, I don't think the season is going how South Carolina thought it would. I think it's kind of a must win. They've got to win here. You got to pull an upset. Because, like I think I said this last week, I'm kind of starting to see with South Carolina, I'm starting to see a hard time finding 6 wins now. And Missouri's playing great ball. And look, that defense is bad. What do you think Brady Cook, Schrader, and Luther Burden's going to do to that South Carolina defense?
Yeah, and Missouri, they showed a lot of resiliency last week. They got down 14-0. And it's like I was talking to you about last week, coming off that LSU loss where they went toe-to-toe with them until the very end of the game. And then it just fell apart, LSU's – if you can go toe-to-toe offensively with LSU, you got a good offense. And Missouri outscored Kentucky 21-7 in the second half. So that's pretty impressive on the road. Brady Cook's playing really well. I just South Carolina, I can't trust them. Like I told you last week, I can't trust them. They're too up and down. They have played a pretty difficult schedule. I will say that. Let's see here. Jaheim Bell was more involved in the offense. He's a South Carolina. Excuse me, that's FSU. But I'm gonna go with Missouri pretty big here. I like Missouri by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I feel like South Carolina's probably gonna put up some points, but they're just not going to stop them, and that's just gonna hurt them in that one. Next up, Ole Miss at Auburn. This is a 6:00 p.m. kickoff over on ESPN. Ole Miss is a 6.5-point favorite. The over/under is 56.5 points. Ole Miss is 5-1, 2-1 SEC play. Auburn is 3-3, 0-3 in SEC play. Matt, I fully believe that this game is only in prime time because of the 2 head coaches. Because Hugh Freeze used to coach Ole Miss, and Lane Kiffin. Look, we talked about this a ton. Like every week last week, it felt like we talked about Lane Kiffin to Auburn, and a lot of people believe Lane Kiffin was very, very close to going to Auburn. So I have a feeling he's going to see. I'm sure he'll receive a warm reception from the Auburn faithful on Saturday night. But Auburn's going to have a bounce back. It's going to be tough against Ole Miss in that run game. But just what are your thoughts on Ole Miss and Auburn?
Well, Auburn's a tough place to play at night. Always has been, always will be. So last week, I was for Auburn's side, Brandon Frazier. Here's a guy who's 6'7". I've wondered for the last couple of years why this guy has never been thrown the football. I mean, you got a guy that big and tall. I mean, he made that one good catch. All you got to do is just get it in the vicinity, and guys that big can catch the ball. I'm interested to see what Auburn does at quarterback here. I mean, because Peyton Thorne, for whatever it is, I don't know if he's not comfortable in the system or what, but he just doesn't make quick decisions. I mean, like you got to put the ball on a guy right before he breaks, especially in the SEC, or it's going to get picked off. And it just seems like when the guys are breaking, he's not throwing the ball, and therefore they get covered, and then he doesn't know what to do. So I don't know. I think they need to make a move there. I think Asher gives them the best chance to win. That's just my opinion. And if Asher can't get it done, put somebody else in. I mean, I think they need to get that position solved, especially moving forward and especially for next year. So whether it's Ashford, Grenier, I mean, I don't know. I know they signed a freshman quarterback. And I also think Jeremiah Cobb needs to get the football more. That kid's a pretty dynamic player. I don't know what's happened to Jarquez Hunter. You saw last week a couple of times the center made some bad decisions snapping the ball. Auburn just kind of a mess on offense right now. I think the defense, they played hard. The secondaries played well. They don't have a pass rusher. Ole Miss, this style of play, I mean, we saw it last week with LSU. Auburn just couldn't hang with them, and they just – but Jackson Dart's playing well. Quinshon Judkins really getting into a rhythm running the football. I think this is going to be a, a decent game, though. I don't see Ole Miss routing Auburn at night. So I think that line's about right. I think Ole Miss probably wins by a touchdown, maybe 9 points.
There's a part of me that wants to say Auburn. Just the atmosphere. Hugh Freeze going up against Ole Miss. I mean, I know he did it at Liberty, but it's different with Auburn, and just the whole stuff. The energy is going to be there because of the Lane Kiffin stuff from last year. I'm leaning Ole Miss. I think you're right. It's going to be a close game. But I want to throw something about Auburn with you, Matt. I wonder, and I brought this up to somebody this week. I wonder if Hugh Freeze was being hard headed because we know he wants to throw the ball. That's what he wants to do. That's what he's always done at Ole Miss and Liberty. But Auburn's strength on offense should be their run game. Robbie Ashford, the read option run game, the RPOs, and then with Jarquez Hunter, Brian Battie, you get Damari Alston back, which he was in the non-contact jersey this week. So maybe he's getting closer coming back. You bring up Jeremiah Cobb. I think Hugh Freeze needs to lean more on that. I think they need to go back to the offense they ran when Cadillac took over as head coach the last 4 games of last year. That seemed to work against everybody. But I feel like Hugh Freeze is being a little hard-headed. He wants to run what he wants to run, which most coaches are that way. We know that. But I just feel like that's kind of an issue they're having right now. Like he wants them to be this one thing, but the talent's just not there to be that.
No, and when you have a quarterback that's indecisive, making decisions, it's not working. And Auburn had so much success against Georgia on the perimeter. And it seems like they haven't been doing that. Last game. I mean, and that's so. Ends that they have, the size that they have, I would think hitting that perimeter would be the best option. And they did it well against Georgia, and I mean, zone reading up the middle against LSU with those big boys they got in the middle and Georgia, it's just not going to work. It just doesn't work. And I mean, I see teams all across the country, they run these zone reads and it's really slow developing and they just run it up the middle and boom, they just get stuffed. I mean, so Keontae Scott, I think, is coming back maybe this week for them. That would be a big get back. He's their punt returner and really good defensive back. So, but yeah, you just as somebody watching Auburn and probably fans of Auburn, you want to see some positivity. You want to see some momentum with the offense, and it seems like they've gone backwards.
Yeah, it does. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe Hugh Freeze got something special for his former team. We'll see. We'll see how it goes on Saturday night. So that's the last SEC game. We're not going to pick LSU and Army, guys. We all kind of feel like we know where that one's going to go. So now we're going to jump into the ACC for the last college football game we're going to pick. We got 2 NFL games we're also going to talk about here to close up. But Duke at Florida State. This will be at 6:30. On ABC, Florida State's a 14-point favorite. The over-under is 49 points. Duke 5-1, 2-0 in ACC play. Florida State 6-0, 4-0 in ACC play. I said SEC so many times. I wanted to say it again. ACC play. Florida State is not in the SEC as of this moment. But anyways, I think the big question, I talked about it earlier. I kind of teased this earlier. We were talking about Will Rogers, Mississippi State. It all comes down to, is Riley Leonard going to play? Now, Mike Elko said there's a chance this week, and he was a participant in practice this week. So that's kind of the big thing with this game. Does Riley Leonard play?
Yeah, and heck, I messed up by calling Jaheim Bell. He played so long for South Carolina. I was like, I don't know what I was thinking there, but he plays for FSU now. But, yeah, I mean, because Henry Balin IV, he was 4 of 12 last week for 107 yards, 2 TDs, and 1 interception.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't going to beat Florida State throwing 12 passes and completing 4 passes. I mean, you're not just going to do it. Jordan Waters, he's a really good running back. He's one of the better running backs in the ACC. But, yeah, that's huge for Duke. I mean, and that Leonard looked like he got hurt pretty good, against Notre Dame. That didn't look like just a rolled ankle or something like that. And I've had sprained ankles before, and those things are tough to get over, man. It takes a little while to get over them. But I just think FSU. I think if Leonard plays, I think this line's a little big. I think if Leonard plays and he's healthy, I think Duke can hang with him. But if he doesn't play, I think this is a cakewalk for FSU. And Jaheim Bell, the tight end, who's South Carolina transfer, he's been a little bit more involved in the offense, and he's a good player, really good player. And Keon Coleman, dynamic wide receiver, and he's really posting big numbers. So I think FSU would be too much for him if Leonard can't play.
Yeah, and I saw Mike Norvell also said this week, Johnny Wilson, they're believing he would be playing against Duke too as well. So you got the two receivers with Wilson and Coleman, and as you mean, Jaheim Bell, Trey Benson at running back, Jordan Travis. But, the best shot for Duke is going to be their defense because they only allow 9.8 points per game. That's number one in the ACC by far. Florida State's the next team at 18.3. Their defense is great, allowing under 300 yards a game. So whatever happens, I mean, this is going to be the ultimate challenge for their defense going up against all that talent. And, Florida State's no slouch defensively either. So, yeah, I'm going with Florida State too. I think Florida State wins this game because, you got to wonder too, if Riley Leonard plays, how mobile will it be? Because a big part of his game is running. I mean, he's their second leading rusher. I mean, this is the number one rush team in the ACC with Duke, but a lot of that's because what he was doing on the ground before he got hurt against Notre Dame. So if he's not able to run, I think that's going to limit them.
Yeah, and I will say this, Duke, I think Mike Elko should be in the running for Coach of the Year. I mean, I really do. I mean, what he's done with that program, they play hard, and they're going to hit you. I mean, and their defense swarms to the ball, man, and they hit. So Florida State, if they're overlooking these guys, they might get a rude awakening. But I don't think Duke can beat them without Leonard.
Yeah, I don't either. Matt, don't you remember a time when we were never talking about Duke football? And now the last two head coaches have made it where we talk Duke football.
Yeah, I mean, and it's good, man. I mean, when you're a fan of a team, I mean, and your team sucks all the time, it's not fun, I mean, and when they're finally good, it's awesome, and that's what being a true fan is about. I mean, so you got to stick with your team, man, no matter what.
There's hope for you, Vanderbilt fans. Just remember that there is hope. A little bit. All right, let's jump into these two NFL games we're going to pick here. And Matt, you've alluded to this time every time we've had you on this year. You also covered the Falcons for Field Level Media, and I was actually wanting to go through all the Southeast teams. While I was looking at it, the Titans are off. The Titans and Jaguars are playing on Thursday night. Of course, this airs on Friday, and we recorded this before that. Just to let y'all guys know, so we can't talk about that one. I believe the Panthers are off. So we're going to talk Falcons and Bucs. We got another game, though. We're going to talk about. And I just want to ask you one thing about the Atlanta Falcons. What on anybody's analytical sheet of paper says when you're down 14-10, you score a touchdown with 14 minutes left, and you go for two?
Phillip, I have no look. I'm always a loss for words. I mean, you go for two, and you don't use the number 8 pick in the draft, who you drafted. So that's nothing against Tyler Algier. He's a good running back, man. But the decision not to take the extra point just blew my mind. And then earlier in the game, they go up 7-3 in the second quarter, and they're about midfield on 4th and 3 in Washington territory, and he goes for it there. They don't get it. Washington marches right down the field, scores a touchdown. I mean, and this guy's done this a good bit. He did it last year. And look, man, I'm to the point with this analytics thing. It pops up on the ESPN icon now. The analytics said that I'm going to take that analytics book and I'm going to drop it in the middle. I mean, because all it is, it's stupid. Period. And I do not, for the life of me, understand it. Like Dan Lanning, I mean, you lost your team. You're playing for a potential playoff berth, man, and you don't take points, and it costs you. That's how you lost the game. I do not understand. And after that play, here Atlanta is. They drove down. You get a little bit more pressure on you, and then you have to go for two if you get down there, which they threw an interception in the end zone, which. I don't know, man. If I'm a general manager and I watch that game as a coach, I'd be like, man, I don't know. I might fire somebody for that because it's inexcusable for me.
Yeah, I was watching it too. I was like, "What are you doing?" I think I may have yelled. I may have yelled as I was watching. And look, I'm not a Falcons fan. I'm just a guy watching ball. I just didn't understand that moment. So they are playing at Tampa Bay this Sunday. Atlanta's 3-3. Just for everybody to know, they're 0-2 on the road this season. They're playing 3-2 Tampa Bay, who's coming off a loss against Detroit Lions. Did not look good in that game, losing 20-6. With credit to Detroit, they played great defense. 12 o'clock on Fox. Tampa Bay is 2.5-point favorite. Over under is 38. So not a lot of points being expected between these two. And really, Atlanta's good defensively, but man, Desmond Ridder has got to pull back on the turnovers. I mean, he had 3 second half interceptions in that one. 2 weeks ago, he had 2 interceptions against Jacksonville. He lost that one 23-7. I mean, he's shown signs of, I think, wanting to take another step with the games he had, but the turnovers, he got to pull back on that.
Yeah, you do. And I mean, he's only made 10 starts in the NFL. So, I mean, that's going to happen. To me, that's some of the coaching too, though, because you built your team around running the football. Mm-hmm. I mean, about every game Atlanta plays in is 21-17 game, pretty much. Mm-hmm. And it seems like here the last 2 weeks, Arthur Smith tried to open it up, which, man, they got a lot of weapons, but you built your team to run the ball. In the last couple of weeks, you've been airing it out. So it's kind of contradicting itself. I mean, so both teams are healthy, though. They both play good defense. 38, that's a low total, but I could see it being a 21-17 type of game like it has been for the last year and a half for Atlanta. So, but I give the edge to Tampa Bay at home. I mean, I just – and the reason why I do that is because Arthur Smith's decision-making puzzles me a lot. And, you see it once, you see it twice, and now it's becoming a pattern. And I'm going to give the edge to Tampa Bay here. Although I think Atlanta's got the talent to go in there and win. I mean, for sure.
And, I'm going to pick – I got Tampa Bay too. I think they'll bounce back. They're not good running the ball, though, so we'll see. But Mike Evans, Chris Godwin at receiver, and then Mike Evans, look, I said they lost 20-6 last week, and they did. And that's not up for debate, obviously. But there was a play early in that game against Detroit. I don't know if you saw it. They were backed up on the goal line. They had a tip pass that was intercepted by Detroit. If that ball was not tipped, he was throwing it to Mike Evans, and Mike Evans was open. Mike Evans is going to the house, and that's a completely different game. I'm just going to say that. But get him going. He did not have a good game either. But and I'll just say this, kind of close up on the Atlanta thing. How they're using Bijan Robinson, I know he's a good pass catcher, but he has not rushed for a touchdown yet. And in 3 out of the last 4 games, he's been held under 50 yards. I kind of would like to see him feed him a little bit more as a running back.
Why do you draft a running back number 8 if you're not going to feed him the ball, man? And, yeah, the Bucs are 29th in the NFL in rushing, so they haven't been running worth a flip. And Atlanta's defense is pretty strong, so probably going to be a low-scoring game here.
Yeah, and then finally, last one we're going to do. I saw this on the schedule. I said, we got to talk about this. Tua versus Jalen. I mean, that's what any SEC football fans got to be, especially Alabama fans, have got to be even paying attention to this game on Sunday night between these two. This is going to be an intriguing game. The Eagles just signed another Alabama guy. They bring in Julio. There's 7 former Alabama players on this Philadelphia team. You look at the Dolphins, Tua, all the speed on the field they have. I kind of feel like we're going to, I joked about the over-under here. The over-under on this one is 52. Philadelphia is a 2-point favorite. It's in Philadelphia. Both teams are 5-1. It'll be NBC Sunday Night Football. What's your thoughts when you hear this matchup, Tua versus Jalen?
Well, Jalen's been struggling with turnovers himself. I mean, Of course, they got upset by the Jets last weekend. He throws a pick 6 for a touchdown. I mean, Miami's offense, a big loss. Something to check this week is the injury list. Lane Johnson, if he's out for the Eagles, right tackle, that's a big loss. He's a really good player. The Dolphins, man, I mean, they're clicking. I think they're first in the league in rushing. I know I have a Raheem Mostert on my fantasy team, and he's been blowing up. So after Devin A-Chain went down, yeah, man, a lot of speed. I don't know, man. It's tough to win in Philadelphia. But they've had some key injuries on the defensive line. So I'm gonna roll the Dolphins here. I think they go in there and upset them. I just think the Dolphins are playing really well right now.
I do too. I'm gonna go with Miami, and I kind of was a Tua detractor NFL wise. But the way he's playing this year, keeps it's not. Obviously, the concussion thing, we're always going to worry about that. But just the way he's playing, and look, he's on my fantasy team. He is really helping me have my 4-2 record so far in fantasy football. So I think it's going to be fun. I think it's close. I think it comes down to the wire. But I think Miami finds a way. That's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see this game because these are two of your better teams in the league, though.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and the Eagles, they're really good at running the ball, and their offensive line. Like I said, that Lane Johnson injury could be big for them if he's out. But
Absolutely.
I mean, and he's going to cover all the receivers. I mean, Tyreek Hill, and the one thing with Tua, man, is like a lot of people tend to knock Tua, but if he gets time in the pocket, which they put some linemen around him, and they got guys he can throw to. If that kid has time, he'll hit the receiver. He's one of the more accurate quarterbacks I've ever seen.
Yeah, when everything's on schedule, I mean, he's gonna find his guy. He's gonna get the ball out quick. I mean, that was him in Alabama. That's been him in the pros. So, Matt, before let you go, any final thoughts as we head into this weekend of football?
Well, another round of good games, man. And we're starting to get to the nitty gritty. And if y'all want to go check out the previews for college football, NFL, MLB, golf, hockey, go check them out at phillevelmedia.com. My Falcon story is up there. I think it goes up on Thursday. So you go to the NFL site, it'll be up on there.
All right, everybody, go check it out. Go check out let me try this again. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fieldlevelmedia.com. You check out Matt's work and all the other great work over there. And Matt, this has been fun, and look forward to doing it again next week.